After explaining and describing what the Yeshiva is all about and what it could lead to, concludes that not always is it so outright, so pronounced, and so clear that we see it, which makes it easier to get rid of. Good morning, but many times it could be hidden, could be in a very subtle way, and actually there are levels and levels and levels of depth how this can be. Of course, the fact that it's deeper means that consciously I'm not really thinking about yeshus. So that's the good news. That means the person is a more refined person and is concentrating and focusing on doing things for the right reasons. Hashem said so because it's truth. But beneath the surface, it is possible that it's being motivated and generated by feelings of yeshus. And again, in order to recognize this, one can't just have a look in the mirror. This is something which needs a lot of deep thinking and deep introspection to look into myself. I use the example of chametz that we take a candle and we have to search. The Iyar haner means the neshama is like a candle. It means you have to look deeply into myself to see where things are coming from. And like we said yesterday, that one of the things that do make it clear for us is to see how we act towards other people. In other words, if I see that I'm putting someone down, if I see that I have negative feelings towards someone, and chas v'shalom hate or can't tolerate another person, or when I hear about their achievements, their accomplishments, how they reach certain heights, it doesn't make me feel good. I could see that as a red flag and to understand that even if I give myself reasons why I look at it that way, the reality is that it could be coming from Yeshus. And again, there's a part in the mind where we explain, even if I think the reason is because this person is not such a good person, he has a lot of flaws in his character. So he says everybody is not perfect. Everyone has flaws. And even if we have flaws, it takes time to work on it, to change it. You can't change everything at once. So this is another very, very important point. I'll get to you in a second. And this is, I think, a thread that goes through every single sikha of the Rebbe and every single letter of the Rebbe, that just because a person has a flaw, it should not take away from the milah that they have. And no matter what they do that's negative, it doesn't disqualify, it doesn't cancel out the positive. Yes, Toby.
So it's like a lot of what we've been discussing recently is like how to recognize yeshus. But how do you, like, once you see it in yourself, like, what do you do about it?
It'll have to be the next mimer. So I think the answer to that is, there are two answers. One answer is for people that are probably on a higher level. And the other answer is more for people like ourselves. On a higher level, it means the more you meditate into the greatness of Hashem, and the more you meditate into thinking about how everything we have and everything we've achieved and everything we've accomplished is from Hashem, that makes us feel more humble, that makes us feel more bittul. What is Yeshus? Yeshus is a certain feeling of independence of Hashem. So the more I think about the opposite, how I'm not independent, on the contrary, I'm totally dependent on Hashem. And everything I have and all the things that I'm proud of within myself, it's all from Hashem. That helps a person with a feeling of bittul. But people like us, it probably will be the same principle like everything else in Tanya. And that is, let's work on the garments, thought, speech, and action. In other words, not to entertain thoughts of Yeshus, which means if a person finds themselves, that thoughts about how great I am start sort of filling my mind, I should know that this is Yeshus and dismiss it. Not to talk that way and not to act that way. And the same is with the outcome of Yeshus. The consequence, the outcome of Yeshus is hate and division. So if I would just focus on that part, not to act in a way which causes division, not to speak in a way which causes division, not to entertain thoughts about division, then I am weakening the yeshus within myself. Remember the rule, we spoke about this many times, that any negative character that a person has, whether it's anger, whether it's jealousy, whether it's hate, or whether it's yeshus, if I don't let that character trait exercise itself, even if I don't change it internally, I just don't let it exercise itself, that alone makes it weaker. Like any other muscle in our body, by exercising, it becomes stronger, and by not letting it exercise itself, it becomes weaker. So if a person has a tendency to do something negative, and I can't change that tendency internally, but if I don't allow that tendency to express itself, like I said, like anger, I don't scream, I don't shout, I don't say something which is this unpleasant or not nice to another person because I'm angry, I hold that back, that alone weakens the anger in the person, weakens the tendency. Okay, Yud Zayin. This is what the Maimon began with. What is this clip of Midyan that Moshe Rabbeinu was waging war against? And Moshe Rabbeinu was told that he has to fight this war. So now we go back to the original question in the Maimon. Lashon Modern Meriva. Midyan comes from the words Modern Meriva, which means strife and arguing, quarreling. Shuvin period with chalkus, divisiveness and fragmentation, to create and break up things that are connected, that are united. That is the clip of Midyan. So I hate the Homenaged, the Kol Shemavaya. There's a famous quote from the Rabbi Marash that he once said. Let me see what the word for it would be in English. In Yiddish, you sometimes say es passt nicht, which means this is just not suitable for someone like you. You're not saying it's this or it's that. It just doesn't fit for someone of your status to do this, to say this, to act this way, to look this way. So in Yiddish, there's an expression as passt nicht. So he gave a list of 10 things, and he said, these are 10 things as passt nicht for a chassid. Like this is so inappropriate. It's not befitting a chassid for these 10 things. And there are 10 things, which is the opposite. That's befitting a chassid. That's what a chassid should look like. That's how a chassid should act. And one of those 10 things are to be someone that's creating a rift, creating a division. Even if your kavanah, even if your intention is l'shem shamayim, but creating division is not a good thing. The Alter Rebbe had a chassid whose name was Rabbi Strashella. So Strashella is the name of a city, obviously. His name was Rabbi. He wasn't an ordinary chassid. He was probably one of the greatest chassidim the Alter Rebbe had. In fact, he was a chavrusa with the Mittel Rebbe. The difference, though, between the Mittel Rebbe and him was in their nature, even though he was definitely a Beinoni, maybe more, but he was very strong. He was more Gvura. And the Mittel Rebbe was all Chesed. The Alter Rebbe appointed the Mittel Rebbe at age 15 that he should become a Mashpia, and he would be the one to guide and direct and lead the younger Chassidim, which he did. And then there was a time that he wasn't feeling well. So apparently he must have asked this other chassid that he should substitute for him for whatever amount of time they needed. That chassid, Rabbi Strashella, came to the Alter Rebbe as a chassid comes to a Rebbe in Yechidus and poured his heart out that lately his davening is just not what it used to be. He just feels stuck. He doesn't feel that fire and enthusiasm. I'm sure he davened then in a way that we would wish once in a lifetime to feel a fraction of that, but still it wasn't what he was used to. So apparently because he was so strong, he must have said some strong words to some of the students. The Alter Rebbe said to him that you should know that if you close the door on a Yid who is precious to Hashem, that Hashem loves with unconditional, infinite love, then all the doors get closed on you in Shemayim. So in other words, the reason why he was finding it difficult to daven is because in Shemayim they closed the doors. What did he do wrong? Again, he was a very big chassid. He was educating them. He was actually being their educator and leading them in the right direction. But because the way he did it was through rejection and a harsh way, that's the way he was dealt with from above also. So the words of the Rabbi Marasha, they're just creating divisiveness and division. That is already Klipas Midyan. And Klipas Midyan is a hate, that's the exact opposite of Shem Havaya, the general Shem Havaya. Not like other things which are related to the Yud, some things are related to the Hey. In fact, all 613 mitzvahs are connected to one of the four letters of Hashem's name. But this is not one of the four letters, but all of Hashem's name. The all-inclusive name of Hashem. This is the opposition to that. The name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is all about Hiskalos and Yichud, which means inclusion and togetherness, and that's what Shem Havaya is all about. And that's the opposite of Olam HaTohu, or Klipas Midyan, who menaged lazel legamri. This is a klipa that doesn't allow unity. It's a klipa that wants to break things apart. And which means that in the realm of klipa, it's also general. V'garua yosim azayim amomen. So actually, this klipa is worse and more harmful than the 7 klipas of the 7 nations. Shein azayim midas rois. These are the 7 negative character traits that we have to refine. In other words, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yesod. This is embodied. These negative characters are embodied in the 7 nations. Like Knani embodies the attribute of Chesed of Klipa, and the next nation is Gvura of Klipa. For example, Taiva, desire and lust, Kas, anger, Ritzicha, person who has a tendency of violence and Chas v'shalom to kill, Begaiva and haughtiness, etc. So what he's saying is that these are individual klipas, but the source of all these things is separation. These are 7 different paths, 7 different methods, 7 different ways that the klipa separates itself from Hashem and separates things from one another. Shekol echad v'echad, every one of the 7, and we know that the 7 include and have subdivisions of hundreds of subdivisions, but they all affect ois pratim Hashem Havaya, only a specific letter of Hashem's name. And gam be'isur Torah b'shesal lo yises Rachmana litzlan. This is when he's talking about the positive commandments. Like remember, we said that in the Shema at night before we go to sleep, there's a part there that says that if I didn't put on tefillin and defected this letter of Hashem's name, or I didn't put on tzitzis, defected that name of Hashem, didn't read the Shema as another letter of Hashem's name. If I didn't daven, it's a different letter of Hashem's name. But that's about positive commandments. Shema and tzitzis and tefillin and tefillah, they're all positive commandments. But the same applies to negative commandments. When a person does a negative commandment, they are causing a blemish in one of the letters of Hashem's name, but it's an individual letter. By the way, in the parentheses, he adds, don't think that an individual is want to say something? Yeah.
When we say that we're doing mitzvah with Hashem's name, do we refer to Hashem as like my relationship with Hashem, or like everyone's relationship with Hashem, and they add to all this picture?
Right. Everyone has their personal relationship with Hashem, and therefore, when I say I affect the Yud of Hashem's name, generally speaking, it means the Yud of Hashem's name that's connected to my line. Now Hashem gives me chayes.
So between more and Hashem more than
Right.
between me and Hashem.
Right. Like the question is, what's wrong? I don't put on tefillin. Someone else is putting on tefillin, so it's taken care of by someone else. So the answer is no. Everyone has their own personal direct line with Hashem, and all these things, Yudke, Vavke, and Tzilus, all the levels is everyone has their own path that connects them to Hashem. So when I say that I'm not putting on tefillin, I'm affecting the letter in Hashem's name, it's that letter in Hashem's name that's connected to me specifically. The difference is only people that are a neshama close, like a Rebbe, who's a general soul. Everything he does affects the Shem Havaya on an all-encompassing level, and that's why it affects all you, because that's the definition of a neshama close. So now he says, even by an individual, even one of us, we are individuals, and we only affect it on an individual level. It also says the Nek of Shem Havaya. It's a pasuk in Chumash. Literally, it's referring to someone who chas v'shalom blasphemes Hashem's name, but it's also from the word nekev. Nekev means a hole, which means shaydei shepegem b'prat echad m'shasal leisa. Even by causing a defect in one detail of the 365 things, nevertheless, pegem gamkem b'klal Hashem Havaya. It does have an effect on the whole name of Shem Havaya. Again, we're not talking about me affecting Klal Yisrael. Talking about me personally, when I affect one name, one detail of a name in a certain way, I'm also affecting the whole name. How's that? If this detail is only connected to the Dalit or the Hey or the Vav or the Yud, so the answer is, look, in our body we have 365 of the veins. One of the veins get cut, or there's a puncture in one of the veins, and blood starts coming out. Even though the blood that's leaving the body is from the hand or the leg or a different part of the body, but we see that the whole body gets weaker because the whole body is all connected. But nevertheless, but his direct effect and the direct impact of what he did was in a specific place in the name of Hashem. From that specific place, it also has an effect on the general Shem Havaya. So again, every Avera that a person violates and every mitzvah that a person doesn't do, they're causing a defect in one of the letters of Hashem's name. What we're learning now in the Parsha, by the way, just helps us understand a little bit better. How many, in the Parsha talks about the Yidden were divided into camps. How many camps were there? There were 4 camps, which means groups. And they had banners. Each banner had a different color, and each banner had a different symbol. And because each one there were 4 groups, 3 Shvatim in one group, 3 Shvatim in another group, 3 Shvatim in another group, and another group. That's 4 groups. And each group had 3 Shvatim. Each Shevet had thousands of people. So why 4 groups? Because it corresponds to the 4 letters of Hashem's name. But just like here, you see that it's one group, but 3 Shvatim. Each Shevet had 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people. Each person has 365 organs and veins and details, and we're not even going into cells in the body and DNA in the body. But here you have 4, but it's broken down to many details. So the same thing with mitzvahs and averis. When we say the yud or the vav or the hey, there's so many details and details and details. But by the avera of midyan is very different. Klipas nigan pirut v'chalkos pegem b'chlolo shem havaya. He's affecting the central and the more all-encompassing aspect of Shem Havaya. And that's why it's so much harder to make a tikkun, to correct the klip of midyan, much more than it's difficult to correct the 7 meters rise. Gambi Surah Torah, even those transgressions, which I'm transgressing something which is clearly and it's directly from the Torah. It's not the Rabbanon, it's not a minig, it's in the Chumash itself, and it's very serious and it has very serious repercussions and punishments and consequences. Nevertheless, it's still a detail. This is the general. Yeah.
Like, as an analogy of the body, if the 365 prohibitions in the 7 nations correspond to different organs, things like that, would the klipa of Midian correspond more to like blood that's everywhere in the body? Or like if somebody was wrong, the blood in the person's body would be affecting the entire body rather than like one
It could
part.
be. It doesn't make that parallel here, but it is one of the differences between blood and all the organs of the body. Blood is more general. In other words, if you would think of another analogy, what he's saying is like this: a person could hurt another person by damaging his ability to speak, chas v'shalom, damaging his ability to walk, damaging his ability to lift his hand, damaging his ability to work, whatever. What if a person does something which damages his ability to live? That's a general thing that includes everything. So yes, if you talk about the body, I would think that blood falls into that category versus organs, or the brain, or the heart, and so on. So this klipa, because it's so general, and this opposes Shem Havaya in an all-encompassing way, that's why it's so much harder to refine and to correct. And prove that it's so much harder to correct. Let's look at the Golus. The first Golus was caused, which means the first Beis Mikdash that was destroyed, was because he hadn't violated certain things which were very serious in Torah. For example, it says that Averis in those days were Avodah Zarah, Gila Arais, and Shvichas Damim, the 3 most harshest thing and most serious violations of Torah. These are the 3 things the person is supposed to give up his life on. So Mikol Mokim, nevertheless, how many years do they need to correct that klipa? Shivim Shana, 70 years. And why 70 years? It corresponds to the 7 midos. The Bisman, Ayin Shana, in a time period of 7 years, through doing tshuva, Tiknu Hapagomim Shenaso Aidei Chatoim V'Avenis HaNeskorim Leil. The Yidden were able to correct those blemishes that they caused by their sins before. But Golus Achrazeh, the Golus we're in now, at the time that the Rebbe Rashab said this Maimer, he said that this Golus is for Sinas Chinam, and it's already more than 1,800 years. Now we can say it's closer to 2,000 years. Because it's known that the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, the second Beis Hamikdash, was destroyed because of Sinas Chinam, which, as we said before, is the Klip of Amalek. I know that is, so it means that this takes so much longer to correct than that. Because this blemish is more all-encompassing, and later he'll explain this detail more, why it takes so much more effort to correct. So this answers one of the questions in the first ois. Why does it say to exact retribution of Havaya? Remember, he asked the question that here, when it says that this is to take revenge, so to speak, for the Yidden, because they did something to the Yidden, is understood, but why Shem Havaya? This is the answer. Because Midian is the opponent to the general and all-encompassing aspect of Shem Havaya. It's really the Nekama against Shem Havaya. Not like you said in the beginning, whoever is against the Yidden, it's like he's against Hashem, which is true. But that means it's not a war directly against Hashem. It's really against Yidden. But because Yidden are connected to Hashem, it's as if you're against Hashem. But now that we understand that Midian is the union of separation and divisiveness and to fragment things and so on, it's clear that this is directly against Hashem. That's why the war, and this war had to be dafka through Moshe. We said in the beginning of the Maimer that from the pasuk it appears the Eibush said to Moshe, this is a war that you have to fight. It's not like the other wars that even though you didn't fight those wars, Yeshua will fight them. No, this one has to be done by you. Moshe himself, he personified unity. He was the embodiment of Shem Havaya down here on earth. He had the absolute bittul. We know when the Torah praises Moshe Rabbeinu, what does it say? That is the honor of Mikol Adam HaShapani, is the most humble person that ever lived. And by the way, you see an interesting thing, and you can draw that parallel to some other things that go on, is that Korach, he was the one who stood up to Moshe. He challenged him. Anyone remember what were his words exactly? What was he accusing Moshe of? Right. He said, Lama Tisnasa, why do you raise yourself above everybody else? That you and your family, you have to be in charge of everything. In other words, he was accusing Moshe of being arrogant. The Torah says that the greatest, most humble person that ever lived is Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's what he found to accuse. So that's how much credit people like that have when they want to do something which goes against the emes. They'll say the most ridiculous things that are clearly ludicrous, but it's going to come out of their mouth because that's the way Klippa works. So here, Moshe Rabbeinu was the opposite. He is the embodiment, and he personifies Achdus in the most perfect way. So therefore, he was the one that had to fight this war. Only he was able to fight this war to give koyach to the Yidden. It wasn't about the physical war. It was about the spiritual war. He was the source of unity. So he was able to provide us and empower us to have the unity with which we'll fight the divisiveness of Midian. That's why he had to appoint the soldiers. The soldiers are the one that were fighting. Why is it so important for him to appoint? The appointing wasn't just a technical thing, like a person who's in charge appoints who's going to do this and who's going to do that. The appointing was a spiritual transition of keiches. He was transmitting to them his koyach of unity. It's like the Rebbe said, I give it over to you regarding bringing Mashiach. It wasn't just saying, okay, I'm not successful, so you go ahead and do it. I give it over to you is actually transmitting the koyach that a Rebbe has to bring and hasten Mashiach. He's empowering us with that koyach. So the koyach that Moshe Rabbeinu has of unity, he's transmitting it to us, and no one else has the unity like Moshe that could stand up to Midian in the full way. That's also another answer to another question. He asked, why does it say Echolzu from you? The difference is Echolzu mashma kulchem. The word Echolzu, and again, this is something in grammar, implies all of you. And Me'itchem is only among you, only 1,000 people of each Shevet. Because he wanted to use the word Hecholzu, because it was about uniting and including all the Yidden. So these 12,000 people that went out to war, they represented and they were united with all the other Yidden. By days you'll move Midian, and that's how they'll be able to fight with Midian and to take revenge, means to destroy the Klippa and to change it. Summary: Klippas Midian Garua Mizayin Amamin. So the Klippa of Midian is worse than all the 7 nations. Umenaged the Klodos Shemavayik Megolos Achran, like the last final Golos. So I guess if you turn this over on the other side of the coin, the positive side, maybe this gives us a little bit more understanding why we talk so much about Avos Yisrael, that this is so amazing and so important. And if divisiveness is all-encompassing klippa that goes against Shem Havaya, so Achdus does the exact opposite. That's the opposite of Midian, is the union of Achdus and Avos Yisrael. Yeah.
I'm a little confused about
Baruch Hashem, a little confused, but very good. Right? Yes.
about the term, like using the term Hecholzu over may
No, I think the Me'itchem had to be there because Me'itchem means from amongst you. That's fine because not all the Jews went to war, only 12,000 went to war.
Right, Moshe Rabbeinu like led them.
Right, but the word Heichotzu is the question.
Right.
Heichotzu, again, I don't understand the exact grammar, but apparently Heichotzu would mean it's a word that is more all inclusive, all of you. And it should have been, I think, Heichotzu, which would then mean from amongst you, you should get armed and go out there and fight.
But they use the word
Heichotzu.
Heichotzu?
Yeah, why? Because he wanted to include all the Yidden are united in this together.
Right, even though not all of them.
Even though not all of them went, right.
But.
It was sort of with the power of all the Yidden.
Right, okay.
It was once a very powerful sikha that the Rebbe gave, very, very powerful. I don't even know if it's printed anywhere, but I remember the Rebbe said it. It was like, it was stunning words. The Rebbe, this is one of the wars, the wars that go on in Israel, even the last little, call it a war, a little battle that they had, these are all miracles. Shooting 800, 900, I think 1,200 missiles into Eretz Yisrael. Unfortunately, one person got killed, a few people got damaged, but if you think of 900 or 1,000 missiles, these are all miracles. And the same with, of course, the 6-day war, which is also around this time of the year. It was in June. These are miracles beyond. If you go into the details and you read about it, I remember even then, I think I know all the details. But as things come out more and more, incredible miracles. There's even a clip, maybe you saw this, the way I think the people from Syria are speaking. And they said, we don't know what happened at a certain point. All the soldiers just dropped everything they had and they ran in fear. They disappeared. The Rebbe was then quoting the words that when Yidden put on tefillin, it puts fear into the nation. And you hear this Arab speaking about what was going on his side of the fence, that he can't explain it. Everyone just ran. They left everything behind. That's how they captured the Golan Heights. But the Rebbe then said something really incredible, that when Yidden go out to war, even though there are those people that they're actually having Mesiras Nefesh, and they're the ones who are putting their life on the line for all of us, but really we're all in it together, which means there are much more soldiers out there attacking the enemy than the soldiers that are out in the field. So imagine you have a few thousand Arabs, and then you have 16 million people coming at them. And the Rebbe says, even though they don't see it, and they're not aware of it, but their mazel sees it. In other words, the angel that's in charge of that nation sees that on the other side of the fence, there's 16 million people attacking them. And not only that, it's not just the Yidden of this generation. It's all the Yidden of all the previous generations. So there's an enormous army that's attacking, and that's why they are filled with fear, and that's why they back off, and that's why they're defeated at the end. So I guess Heichotzu is, we're all united, it's all one, we're all coming together. That's why he wanted to emphasize this. That even though he's saying that it's only 1,000 of each, but it's not that only these people are fighting this war, all the Yidden are fighting the war, and Moshe Rabbeinu includes everyone, and he's the one who's sort of giving them the koyach to be able to do it. I mean, this is the meaning of one of the words, very famous quote from the Rebbe, about the story with the Alter Rebbe, that there was once a Farbrengen. This was a Farbrengen between the Alter Rebbe and his colleagues. We're talking about each one was a greater tzaddik than the other, but they were students at that time, students of the Maggid Mizrich. And somebody whose a child, I think, was sick. His child was sick, and the doctor said, "There's no hope." And he was beside himself. And he came into the shul. It was his son-in-law. His name was Belvu, and he said that his son-in-law is in danger, and he began to cry, begging them to give a bracha. And they said to him, "What are you coming to us for a bracha? Go to the Rebbe." In other words, they felt that it's inappropriate in the presence of the Rebbe. They should give brachas as if they're acting like Rebbes in the presence of a Rebbe. There is such a halacha, by the way, that a student is not allowed to give a halacha ruling if he's in the presence of his Rebbe. According to one opinion, that's why the two sons of Aaron died, because they ruled something in the presence of Moshe and Aaron. But anyway, they didn't want to give the bracha, so he was crying stronger. So they began singing to outshout him. They're singing and he's crying louder and they're singing louder. And suddenly the Alter Rebbe stood up and everyone became quiet. The Alter Rebbe was the youngest of the bunch. He said, did you all forget of this heavenly message that we heard from our Rebbe, the Maggid? That the Maggid said that a bracha from good friends with a loving brotherly way can accomplish more than Malach Machol can accomplish up there in heaven. And they gave him a bracha, and he was cured, and miraculously cured. What does that mean? That even the fact that you give a bracha doesn't mean that you're a tzaddik. If you give a bracha with true love for another person, that you care for him, that can do more. Who is Malach Machol? Malach Machol is an angel that Hashem created. You know how long ago he was created? 5,783 years ago, minus 1 day, because he was created on Monday. So he's pretty ancient. Since then, he's been climbing higher and higher than Malach. So he's constantly rising in his Avodas Hashem. And he is the official advocate of the Jewish people up there on Rosh Hashanah, all times of judgment. He's our advocate. So you can imagine the power that he has. The Alter Rebbe says, get up together with other friends and give a bracha to someone at a Fabrengen. This has more power than what Malach Machol can do in the heavenly court. So the reason why it has so much power is because that's Achdus. Just like we explained that Midyan is like the deepest depth of Klippa, Achdus is the highest depth of Kedusha and godliness and Shem Havaya and so on. Okay, so really what we should be doing now is reviewing the whole Maimer, going over the terms, answering the questions. But we have this competition, even though we saw here competition is not a good thing, jealousy, but the clock, this competition is always causing problems. And we just don't have time to start learning about Shavuos before you turn around at Shavuos. So you have these books and you have everything in here. In fact, at the end, the last pages, you have the Hasidic terms of each chapter. You have the Hasidic phrases. We also have a summary of the whole Maimer. In short, the whole Maimer summarizing. When you read it, it's like you can read the whole Maimer, which helps you remember it better. All the 17 chapters. It's on page 101. At least read that. We actually have the author here. Malka is the one who wrote it up when she was in school many moons ago. Yes, you did it. And tomorrow we'll start learning about Shavuos. Okay, so what's the moral of the story? Try to be nice to one another. Bottom line. Yeah.
At the end, they're talking about how the klipa of Midian is much more difficult to correct, and they use like this gullus as an example of that.
Right.
So how does that correspond to what our Rebbe was saying about Mashiach and things like that? Like Mashiach is ready to come.
Well, after 2,000 years, we got there. We did. The Rebbe's saying. The Rebbe not saying we didn't need it. The Rebbe saying we already did whatever needs to be done in order to correct it.
That obviously includes this blemish that was.
Oh, of course, yeah. Again, even though you say, but I know people that don't have so much Avos Yisrael today. So the Rebbe explained that he's talking about what all the Yidden went through collectively throughout all the generations. We did our time and we corrected whatever needed to be corrected. And the fact that individuals are missing and lacking doesn't take away from the fact that Klal Yisrael, the Jewish nation, collectively from the beginning of time till now, as a whole, is now complete. That's the Rebbe's point. Yeah. Okay.
Was that one of the Arab early leaders was like, oh, we woke up and we looked through our binoculars and we saw that the Jews were like strapping black boxes to themselves, and we thought it was a secret weapon, so we ran away. And the Rebbe heard it, and he was like, it was a secret weapon.
God, I just see him right now.